Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in less than 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. Today we are talking about everything from the new affirmative action guidelines to the World Cup's privacy issues to Amazon's Prime Day. All that and much more in less than 10 minutes. And hang out after today's news for 3 Question Thursday. We are talking about the future of social media influencers, especially those that look human but are really computer-made.
There's a massive need for transparency.
I'm Erica Mandy. Today is Thursday, July 5th. You ready? Let's do this. Reports say the Trump administration wants colleges to ignore race when deciding who to admit into the college, aka get rid of guidelines the Obama administration put in place. So to understand this potential plan, let's back up for a moment. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in the past that universities may use affirmative action to help minority applicants get into college, but there's different interpretations of that ruling. The Obama guidelines laid out recommendations for schools, in part explaining that it's legally okay to use race as a tool in admissions. Now, Reuters reports the Trump administration feels those guidelines went too far, beyond what the Supreme Court intended. So instead, other guidelines that encourage a race-neutral method for admissions is going to be recommended. Critics say the move offends our nation's promise to give opportunity for all. But to be clear, no actual law has changed, just the recommendations from the government. By the way, this change of the federal guidelines on affirmative action is coming out at the same time there's a high-profile lawsuit about this issue. There's a lawsuit against Harvard University. It argues the school discriminates against Asian American students, but Harvard says not true, and it plans to keep using race as one of many factors to ensure a diverse campus. The same type of nerve agent that was used to almost kill a former Russian spy and his daughter in England just made 2 more people sick. British police say a man and a woman in their 40s are in critical condition now because of this. But the AP reports authorities aren't sure if they were exposed to chemicals that were somehow left behind in the area from the last attack or if this was an entirely new attack. Remember, this nerve agent is military grade. The British government believes it was Russia that attacked the former spy and his daughter 4 months ago. And now there are new questions about what happened in this latest case. Police say the 2 people who are sick now don't have anything in their background to suggest that they were a target. The investigation continues. The World Cup quarterfinals are starting tomorrow, and the final 8 teams are now set. But now there are some privacy questions about how Russia is operating the World Cup this year. The New York Times reports every fan at the World Cup in Russia must have a digital fan ID, basically a badge with your picture and information. They're meant to be for security, and Russian authorities said they conducted background checks on every fan to avoid terrorist attacks and other threats. Some fans even like them as keepsakes. But the report says privacy advocates believe it's risky and gives the government there in Russia too much data. They say Russia should destroy all that info as soon as the World Cup is over. But it's unclear if that will actually happen. Even with some of these concerns, though, other countries prepping to host the World Cup in the future may consider doing the same thing for security purposes. Today, Ronda Rousey will become the first woman inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. She defended her UFC title 6 times and holds records for the fastest finishes in her division. She later left UFC after losing a couple of fights. She's now wrestling with WWE. But the UFC president said she is still a pioneer and a global icon, and that there would be no women in UFC without Ronda Rousey. Volkswagen is launching a new car-sharing service. Not ride-sharing like Uber and Lyft, but more car-to-go style, which lets you rent a car by the minute. TechCrunch reports the new program will be called We, as in capital W, capital E, and it'll be all electric vehicles. It's starting out in Germany next year, then the company hopes to go on to other major cities in North America, Europe, and Asia starting in the year 2020. Amazon's Prime Day is coming up in less than 2 weeks. It'll be discounts and deals for the Amazon site itself and new this year for Whole Foods as well, which of course Amazon now owns. Amazon announced Prime Day will start July 16th at noon Pacific time and will be featuring more than 1 million deals this year. TechCrunch says this year's Prime Day will last the longest it ever has, 36 hours, and will be available in more countries than ever before. If you want an Amazon device, though, like the Echo Dot, you might be able to get even steeper discounts, and some of these things are already on sale starting now. And by the way, Bloomberg reports Amazon will now start publishing a holiday toy catalog, as in a printed out physical catalog. The hope is to hand it out at Whole Foods stores and then get some of those Toys R Us customers that aren't as used to shopping online come over to Amazon. Remember, Toys R Us shut down for good last week. Another record broken. What's the sport? Hot dog eating contest. Nathan's 4th of July hot dog eating contest happens every year on Coney Island in New York City. And for the 11th time, Joey Jaws Chestnut won. He ate 74 hot dogs and buns in just 10 minutes. That's it for your main news roundup today, but it's now time for 3 Question Thursday, where I ask a few questions of a different expert about a different topic every Thursday after the news. You may have heard a story I mentioned last month about social media influencers who are actually CGI, computer-generated images. CNN aired a report that gave a couple of examples. Some people say a lot on Instagram has been photoshopped anyway, but others say it's deception and dangerous for young people who may not realize that they are computer generated. So today we're going to get the perspective from Brian Fanzo. He works with businesses on how to leverage emerging technologies and digital marketing to stand out and reach millennial and Gen Z consumers. He's worked for the Department of Defense and cybersecurity and is now the founder of iSocialFanz, which has helped launch digital strategy with brands like Dell, Adobe, IBM, Applebee's, and more. So here's my conversation about CGI Instagram influencers with Brian Fanzo. Brian, thanks so much for coming on the show. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk Instagram.
So can you first explain what is an influencer on social media?
An influencer or influencer marketing is when a brand collaborates with somebody that either already has a fan base or is already a fan of their brand, and they either pay that person or they share goods or some kind of services, and they actually allow that person or influencer or CGI for this matter in this case to represent that brand, right, and kind of amplify it. One of the stats I use all the time is that 64% of millennials actually trust YouTube creators more than their own friends. And so if you look at that stat where that many people are trusting YouTube creators, well, that YouTube creator talking about a brand or a product is going to be far more influential than a billboard, than a marketing sign. And it's the time that we're living in. So influencer marketing is really just about, how do I connect with somebody that already has a layer of trust with a community that I want to attract?
So how long have these CGI social media influencers been around? And do you think the people that are following them realize they're not actually human?
So I think there's people talking about it being around for probably about 2.5 years. I think we started to see them kind of trickle into the social media space around that time. I think for a long time we didn't. Most people were kind of naive to what was really going on with this whole concept of CGI, even the concept of where CGI happens. Now, in the gamer world and a lot of these other spaces, that's been normal for, let's say, 7 to 9 years of having an avatar and having it have very human-like features. I think for the most part, for the last 2 years or so, most people were not aware of it. I think the Mark Zuckerberg questioning at Congress proved that the average consumer doesn't really know what they're doing on social media. But I think where we're going now, I think now we're getting a little bit more exposed to the possibility of these people or someone not being real but yet being an influencer. But I think it's definitely about 2.5 years worth of new version of CGI on Instagram.
And some of these influencers have more than 1 million followers. Many of them are probably young people. So do you think those young people know more or less about what they're really getting when they follow someone?
Oh, I love that question because as a job, that's what I do as I help brands relate with millennials and Gen Z. And I wouldn't say that they know more. I would say they're probably less offended when they find out it is a CGI and not a human. I think there's a massive need for transparency. I think by putting it out there that I think they don't lose much today if they put it out there that, hey, this is CGI, because some of the content they're putting together is beautiful and well put out with all of the things that a normal person would do. And by being transparent, I don't think you lose anything. Moving forward, we won't see less of this, but we will definitely see a more transparent approach to putting it out there.
Critics have said that CGI influencers set a standard that's really impossible to live up to, both for other human influencers, but also the consumers who see those pictures and may want to be like them. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think perfection's a fairy tale, right? And I think that most, even if a brand, I survey as a speaker, I survey my audiences almost every time and ask them, who's a perfect brand, who's a perfect person? And we say nobody. And so the idea that CGI is actually conveying perfection, I don't think is as kind of big of a deal as we might believe it was. We have mannequins that were in in stores, and mannequins were never built or sculpted like a normal human. Like we never expected to be 6. I'm 5'9" if I'm lucky, and all of the mannequins are 6'4", right? And I think when you're transparent about it, I think that helps with that. I think in today's marketing, you have to be relatable. And if you are trying to be relatable with a perfect persona, I think you are going to alienate a good portion of your fan base.
All right, so what's the future? Will there be more CGI influencers? Will they take over? What do you think?
So I don't see them taking over. I think we are going to see more of it. I think we're going to start to see kind of this delicate balance of transparency. As I kind of mentioned, I like the idea of collaboration. I firmly believe that augmented reality and virtual reality are going to be the empathy engines of the future. And CGI kind of plays into that same mix. And if it's allowing us to convey some message or portray someone that's traveling the world that would be impossible for an actual human to do it, we're going to see that being used. So I see CGI increasing. I don't see it going away, but I do see a need for more transparency in that space. But also don't be surprised if we start seeing augmented reality avatars that are very influential. And so I think this is the start. I don't look at it as scary. I just look at it as a brand new way of doing things, because who would have thought that 10 years ago that we would, just use an app to jump in a random car that picks us up outside of our house, but yet we use Uber and Lyft like it's the most natural thing in the world. So don't be surprised 5 years from now, we start thinking about CGI, influencers, augmented reality, virtual reality as the new normal. It's just the rate of change that we have today. It's something that we have to be prepared for and really take an open mind to its possibilities.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Brian Fanzo is also a podcast host and speaker. You can learn more about him and this topic in today's show notes. That's also where you'll find more about all the news mentioned today. Just go to thenewsworthy.com, click episodes, and find today's date. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends. The Newsworthy is ready for you by 4 a.m. Eastern Time every weekday, so we'll be back with more news tomorrow. Have a great day.